Our next project is the Southern Remand Centre, and it's in the public category, and it's by Xsquared Architects with Guymer Bailey Architects. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Alex, I will just set the pointer here, so if you want to use that, that's there. Yeah. And it's just an error. Yeah. Right. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today, but also on which the project that I'm going to show you is located. I wanted to start with this statement, this quotation: "No one truly knows a nation until one has been inside its jails. A nation should not be judged on how it treats its highest citizens, but its lowest." And it's really that lens that we've tried to apply to the project I'm going to show you. We've tried to create a prison typology, I guess, which is respectful, humane, and is looking to change the way things have been done. Very briefly, the project came about because in 2017, Australia ratified OPCAT. And one of the fundamental things there was that convicted inmates should not be housed with remandees, people that are not convicted. So for the first time now, with the completion of the Southern Remand Centre, remandees are held separately to convicted people. The site that was selected was basically a ploughed field out the back. We have the women's prison. I'm not going to try and point with that. Women's prison here, and the men's, medium and max, normally known as RPC here. The benefit of locating it there was that we could annex the new facility off the existing facility. So we didn't have to have a new gatehouse. We didn't have to have new medical facilities. We could basically annex some of the uses of it. This is a plan of the main plan. We ended up with 2 accommodation wings, which basically wrap around an external kind of landscape garden area. In the middle is a small clinic and recreation building, which also has kind of an office at the first floor, natural sight lines across the landscaped area. I'm not able to show all the plans of the development for obvious reasons, but this is a redacted version that I've got given permission to show. We ended up with 2 main accommodation buildings, providing 156 beds out of 3 different cell types: a single cell, which are obviously the majority, accessible, and buddy cells. The building is mainly a 2-storey building, but because of the slope on the site, we ended up harvesting the rainwater. We have water tanks under the subfloor area, and that's used to flush the 140 toilets across the site. The site had a few issues. Whatever's the last bit of the site to be used normally has it's not been used because it's got the problems. So this one had a 7-metre fall across it, which we had to deal with. We ended up using the perimeter concrete wall as a retaining wall on both the top and the bottom side. But we still had to maintain disability access across the whole of that external landscaped area. At the start, we really tried to set some guidelines that we were going to follow as we designed the project. And fundamentally, getting natural light into the building was a real key one. So wherever possible, we omitted a cell in the plan to get light in through here. We had skylights, etc., and these 2-storey glazed windows. We wanted that connection to the landscape, so inspiring place for the landscape architects, and we wanted to be able to look out from the cells at greenery. Because of the fall, you can actually look out over the concrete wall into the nearby forested area. But acoustics is normally something that's done badly in a prison because there's lots of hard finishes. So we, wherever possible, put acoustic attenuation in, because if people get headaches, people get agitated, and that's not really what you want from your staff or the people being housed. Materiality. We wanted some good quality materials. Often in a prison environment, you default to the worst possible. So in small areas, we had hone block work, we had exposed aggregate concrete. Colour. So if you know Risdon Prison, it's very grey. So we really wanted to focus on the colour to lift the feel of the place. We used a Norcore product that gave us a 25-year warranty on the external finish to the concrete. Moving on, In plan, one of the key moves was to pull the window to the single cells out at a slight angle. That created a seat internally that could be used as to sit on and read a book, but also on the outside helped break down the facade, which otherwise would have been very kind of monolithic. A key thing for us was to get the bars off the windows. So normally in a maximum rated accommodation cell, which this is, there would be bars across the cell windows. So we had to do a series of destructive testing. This window has 44 mil thick glass that we managed to prove and keep the unions or TPS happy that it was fit for purpose. On the outside, those angled windows help break down the facade. I like to think it looks a bit more like a student accommodation than what a normal prison building would look like. As the day goes past, the shadows track round very quickly. This destructive testing also went into what was in the cells. So we wanted to move away from the stainless steel toilets that you often get in prison cells. So we had to test everything. This is an example of something that didn't pass the test, but it's a process that we had to test every single element that was going into the project. Very quickly, in the day rooms, we looked at the numbering of the cell doors, again, to try to make it feel less austere. So it's almost like a youth hostel. And then you can see that the officer post there is a piece of reasonably nice joinery. Consultation was very key. We modeled everything in 3D, so we were able to get the officers through with a VR headset. You can see here the render that we showed and the actual final product. So it's pretty close. I think I'm up on time. So it's been now operating for somewhere between 6 to 9 months. It's already up at 90% capacity, and it's getting some pretty good feedback.
Thanks, Alex. Fascinating. So one of the things you kept mentioning, kind of dignified moves.
Yep.
And so where was that? Was that coming from you guys, or was that coming? How hard was it to steer that into the work?
So this is my second project that I've done in the prison environment. And I guess the first one I learned some of the skills and now have the confidence to move things in a certain direction. But it was also, we had a client, there's been a change and they wanted to do things better. So we weren't defaulting to the lowest option, if that makes sense. So just a simple thing of having some carpet in the cell, so when you get out in the morning, you can put your foot on a carpet instead of being bare concrete. Mm-hmm. So just little things all the way through, but so we were pushing it, but we had a client that was willing to hear it, if that makes sense. Yeah, yeah. And obviously you're going through value management. You're trying to save certain bits of the design. So it's not an easy process, but we were very lucky to have all the key parties wanting it to happen, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So that was my question. You must have had a champion in your client.
Actually had many champions. I designed the angled out window and thought this isn't going to fly. But I know that when it was presented to the minister, she became a champion of the angled window. And obviously when the builder came on board, they want things to be easier because a straight run of windows is far, far easier. So we did have people that were championing the cause, if that makes sense.
With the sensitivity, there's only so many things you can show us. So you've talked a lot about that humane approach to the prisoners, and so probably more about the inside out like approach to the design. But in terms of the siting, there must have been complexities with that, and also the built form, because you do mention in the written content there was a real desire for the success of the landscaping, or there being enough activities.
Yeah. So, I mean, from a siting perspective, we have security overlays. We had a Tas Fire security overlay, so they wanted to be able to drive a fire truck in either direction around the site. So it was complicated. We're in a bushfire zone, so we had to deal with a BAL rating because of the nearby forest. Yeah, it was.
Were you given siting?
Yes, that was.
You were.
Yeah.
And the courtyard, as it was a consequence of the two wings established the courtyard, was that generated through the design, or was that given?
We established it through the design. Part of it was that we have the women's prison here, and we didn't want with kind of the acoustic issue of people kind of shouting over the wall at each other. If that makes sense.
And in terms, just quickly, in terms of the that connection, so clearly there was a lot of early work with landscape sensibility.
Yep.
And the relationships and the natural daylight, all of those things were early in the work, and they led to quite integrated conversation and resolution.
And I think because we could model it and show them what it was going to look like, they didn't want it to be pulled out. So when they saw, so when they could get in and see that's what we were saying they were going to get. And then the builder said, well, we could take out some of the colour, or we could put in, this furniture is not cheap, it's sandfield, but it was all part of the process.
Thank you.
Okay.